An 11-year-old girl gone too soon.
I sadly announced that Audrii's body was located at the Trinity River on the U.S. Highway 59.
The murderer living just behind her home.
They could have gotten Stephen McDougal off the streets and probably prevented what we're going through now.
All the while, state lawmakers fight for change.
I've already been in touch with several state senators and state representatives who, like everyone else, was just horrified and dumbfounded that this wasn't already an offense that you had to register.
It starts like any ordinary morning. A quiet neighborhood, a school day, a child getting ready to leave home. But on February 15th, 2024, something went wrong. An 11-year-old girl walks out of her home in Livingston, Texas, and vanishes. No screams, no witnesses, no clear sign of struggle. Just gone. At first, it seems like a familiar story. Maybe she missed the bus. Maybe she wandered off. Maybe she would be found within hours. But as the minutes turn into hours, and the hours turn into days, one question begins to echo louder and louder. How does a child disappear in broad daylight without a trace? And then, authorities identify someone close to the family, a man who had been around her, a man who knew her routine, a man whose story didn't quite add up. What followed was a search that gripped the nation, in a discovery that shocked investigators, and a case that would leave behind more questions than answers. Because this wasn't just a disappearance, this was something much darker. If you believe every missing child deserves justice, take a second to like this video. It helps stories like this reach more people. And as you watch, I want you to think carefully. What really happened that morning? February 15th, 2024 began like any other school day in Livingston, Texas, a small town, the kind of place where routines feel predictable, almost safe. 11-year-old Audrii Cunningham was supposed to get ready, leave home, and catch the school bus. But she never made it. That alone wasn't immediately alarming. Kids miss buses sometimes. They forget things. They run late. But this was different. Because Audrii didn't show up at school at all. And by the time afternoon came, and she still hadn't returned home, something felt wrong. Very wrong. Authorities were notified, and almost immediately the situation escalated. This wasn't treated as a simple missing child report. An Amber Alert was issued. That tells you everything you need to know, because Amber Alerts aren't issued lightly. They are used when there is reason to believe a child is in immediate danger. Now the clock was ticking. Investigators began reconstructing the timeline. The last confirmed sighting of Audrii was around 7 a.m. near her home. She was believed to be heading toward the bus stop. But there was a critical gap. No one could confirm that she actually got there. No bus driver saw her. No classmates reported seeing her. No surveillance confirmed her movement beyond that point. It was as if she disappeared somewhere between her front door and the outside world. And that narrow window, that short distance, became the center of the entire investigation. Search teams were deployed almost immediately. Local law enforcement, state agencies, volunteers. They searched roads, wooded areas, nearby properties, every possible direction. But there was nothing, no backpack, no footprints, no signs of struggle. And when there are no signs, investigators start asking a different kind of question. Did she ever make it out safely at all? Because statistically, when a child disappears without a trace near home, it often means the danger was already close. Very close. As investigators dug deeper, they began looking at the people around her, family, neighbors, anyone who had access. And that's when a name started coming up. A man who wasn't just nearby, but deeply connected to the household. Someone familiar. Someone trusted. At least, at first. Before we continue, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this was random, or someone close? And if you're following this case with me, make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next changes everything. As the search intensified, investigators began narrowing their focus. Because cases like this rarely stay random for long. Patterns emerge, timelines tighten, stories start to crack. And in this case, one name quickly rose to the top. Don Stephen McDougal, a man who wasn't a stranger. He was known to the family. He had access. he had proximity, and most importantly, he had opportunity. Reports indicated that he sometimes helped take Audrii to the bus stop. That alone made him significant, because if Audrii never made it there, then whoever last had contact with her became critical. Investigators identified him as a person of interest. And that's a very specific term. It doesn't mean guilt. But it does mean, we need to look at you more closely. Authorities began examining his movements. Where was he that morning? What did he do after? Who did he speak to? And that's when inconsistencies began to appear, subtle at first. But in investigations, subtle inconsistencies matter, because truth tends to stay consistent. Stories that change, they raise questions. At the same time, physical evidence started emerging. Investigators located a backpack near the Lake Livingston Dam area, believed to belong to a child, possibly Audrii's. That shifted the search dramatically. Now the focus moved toward water, the Trinity River. And search teams expanded operations, boats, divers, specialized units, because when a case moves toward water, the urgency changes, and so does the fear. Meanwhile, McDougal's background was also coming into focus. He had prior legal issues, and during the investigation, he was arrested on an unrelated charge. That gave investigators something critical: time. Time to analyze evidence, time to build a case, time to verify or disprove his statements. But even then, the biggest question remained unanswered. Where was Audrii? Because until that was answered, this case was still a race against time. At this point in the story, what do you think investigators were already suspecting? Let me know below. And stay with me, because the next discovery would change this case forever. 5 days, that's how long the search lasted. And 5 days of uncertainty, 5 days of hope, slowly fading. And then, on February 20th, 2024, everything changed. Authorities made a devastating announcement. A body had been found in the Trinity River, near US 59, south of Goodrich. It was Audrii. The case was no longer a missing person investigation. It was now a homicide, and with that shift came a different kind of investigation. One focused not on finding, but on proving. Proving what happened. Proving who was responsible. Proving it beyond any doubt. Details from investigative documents began to surface, and they painted a disturbing picture. According to reports from court filings, evidence suggested that Audrii's body had been weighed down. Investigators also pointed to physical evidence linking materials found at the scene to items associated with McDougal. Additionally, a digital and forensic analysis, such as cell phone data, was used to track movements and timelines. These elements, taken together, began forming a narrative that contradicted earlier statements, a narrative that suggested this was not an accident. But again, it's critical to be precise here. These details came from investigative findings and court documents, not speculation. Because in true crime storytelling, accuracy matters, responsibility matters. The official cause of death was later reported as homicidal violence involving blunt force trauma. And with that, the legal process moved forward. McDougal was formally charged. The case progressed through the system, and eventually, in January 2025, he pleaded guilty. No trial, no prolonged courtroom battle, just a resolution. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A final outcome in the eyes of the law. But for many, not a complete closure. Because even when a case is legally resolved, questions often remain. Do you think justice feels complete in cases like this? Or does something always feel unfinished? Tell me what you think, and if you've stayed with this story to this point, take a moment to like this video. It helps keep real stories like this visible. The story of Audrii Cunningham is no longer unfolding. It has reached its legal conclusion, but its impact remains. It's a reminder of how quickly normal life can be disrupted, how danger doesn't always come from far away, and how trust can sometimes be misplaced. It also highlights something deeper about cases like this, the gap between what we know and what we may never fully understand. Because even with a confession, even with a conviction, there are moments that remain unknown. moments that only existed between two people. And those moments are often where the hardest questions live. For the community, for the family, and for everyone who followed this case, this wasn't just about solving a crime. It was about a life lost far too early, and a story that should never have existed. If this story moved you, share it. Awareness matters. And before you go, tell me this. What do you think is the biggest lesson from this case? Because sometimes, the most important part of a story is what we take away from it.